everybody, good morning. This is Michelle with Creative Operation, and today I wanted to share with you how I put together this box. And I did do a walkthrough video for this already. I will link that below, but this is paper that I got from a Your Creative Studio box, and when I saw it, I just knew that I was going to make this, and so I really geared it toward using the paper that was in the collection. What I'm going to do today is show you how to make the base of the box, and then you can use whatever papers you want. You can do it, obviously any theme you want. This would be a fun present, a box for a present. This would be a great sewing box, like I said, an embroidery box. I had one comment that it would be a great box to put like darning stuff for like making socks and things like that. I just think it's a great little box. It's fun, it's beautiful, and it fit the papers really well. But I won't go through a whole lot with this because I did do a walkthrough and talked about all that. But what we're going to do today, like I said, is we're going to just go ahead and do the construction of the box, and I'll show you how I did it. So the lid opens up, and then it explodes out. And y'all know me, I'm a explosion box fanatic. I guess you could say that. In this particular box, so let's go back to the inside of the lid. That's what that looked like. There are folios on the top and the bottom, I guess you could say, the way it's laid now, so that you could tuck like, patterns, papers, pictures, thread packages, whatever you want to do, and then just a simple closure. And I use seam binding that I had in my stash from Country Craft Creations. And then on the sides, so that's top and bottom here, and then on the sides there's a nice let me do that, gusseted pocket here, so you could tuck all kinds of things in there. And then you have this inner box, and I chose to do it diagonally because I thought it was beautiful. But and then I put a folder in here, and because of the paper collection that I got in that kit, I decided to use those papers in this little folder. So this is an optional thing. You definitely don't need to do this, but I wanted to, and I really wanted to use up all these beautiful papers that they had. This box also came with this gorgeous pair of scissors, so I had to add them. So this is the sewing box. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you about all of this. Now, I did use cardstock. I did not use any chipboard for this album. So because of that, I did mat everything inside and out with an extra piece of cardstock. So I did cut the paper. So like the purple is the base. This gray here is the matting cardstock, and I cut that 1/4 inch smaller. So for example, this panel here is 6 by 6. So I cut this at 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. And then the pattern paper, you would cut, if you wanted to put pattern paper on top of that, 5 1/2 by 5 1/2, which is what the pattern paper here measured. Okay. And then, I made the pockets out of cardstock, the folders out of cardstock. So anyways, so I will give you the measurements for all this as we go through the video. Or I actually just did, but there's also going to be some stuff down below too. So please make sure you read in the description, because I do give some cutting information down there. So let's get started with the tutorial. And you're going to need some cardstock. Now, remember I said I was going to just make the base today, so you can decorate this any way you want to do it. Let's start with the actual box. So you will need to have 2 pieces of cardstock that are 12 by 12. I'm just using some green out of my stash here. I don't honestly know if I'm going to finish it or if I'm just doing a tutorial with it, but we'll find out. And if I do make something with it, I will show you. So if you go ahead and put your cardstock in your scoreboard, you're going to score at 6, and you're going to turn and you're going to score at 6. You're going to do that for both pieces. Okay. Then what you're going to do is you're going to grab a pair of scissors, and in a second, what we're going to do, actually, let's do it now. Okay, so on both of these, we're going to cut the squares out, and that's going to help things fold up nicer. So it's just going to be just a sliver, and I didn't quite get this side here. But we're going to just cut on either side of those scores and get those completely out. All right. And then what you can do is fold your paper and then make sure that little nubbin cuts nice and flat. Okay. So let's do that with both of those, just on one of these scores. Okay, just one. So I'm cutting up one side of that score all the way to the end and cutting up here. This is a big box. It's 6 by 6 at the base and it stands 6 inches tall. So it is a goodly sized box. That is for sure. Okay. I'm just going to fold that and then cut that little piece straight. Okay. Get rid of our pieces. All right, so then you should have a piece that looks like this. So let's go ahead and just fold and burnish all of the score lines while we're at it. Okay. And this one, you can see the slit that we cut out, which is going to help things fold up a little bit better. And we're going to put these together here in just a second. So let's fold these both together. This is super simple. Okay. All right. One more. Okay. So then what you're going to do is you're going to line this up with one slit at the top and one slit at the bottom. And we're going to glue the two squares that kind of intersect together, okay? So we're going to glue those two pieces together. That's going to reinforce the bottom of our box. So I'm using art glitter glue here. And then I'm going to take this one and I'm going to line this up by the scores there. Okay. Still want to make sure my box flips up. So kind of double check that you didn't go too far. And then go ahead and press that down. And then wipe up any glue that might seep out. Let's turn it over. Now this is a big project, so you are going to need some room for manipulating this thing around, okay? So now we have a bottom here, and then these are going to end up being our sides. So what we're going to do, and the reason why I did this is because, you know, I am using just cardstock, and I am going... You know, I did double matte because I really wanted to kind of strengthen it, but it also made it really pretty and it fit the papers. But what we're going to do here with these flaps is we're going to fold this over and we're going to glue those down. That's going to reinforce these sides just a little bit more, okay? So I'm going to just use these pieces and I'm literally just going to glue them down. That's all I'm going to do. I think that it made for a sturdier box, especially since it's kind of, you know, a big shape. And because I didn't use any chipboard in this. Now, if you want to use chipboard, you could totally do that. You would have to cover it with more cardstock and, you know, whatever you want to do. This is just how I did it. So I'm going to fold this one down. These are going to be the sides of our box. This will be the top where the lid's going to attach, and this one will be the kind of the front. So that's how I did that, and that basically completes the actual making of your box. This is the outer, the big box, okay? And this is the other reason why we cut the slit, because we wanted it to fold really nice. So you can see there's just a teeny tiny little gap there, and that's going to help everything just kind of fold up really nice and neat. Okay, so you should have a piece that has a single layer of cardstock up and down. So top and, or, you know, like back of the box with the lid in the front here. And then the sides are doubled and the bottom is doubled. Okay, So this is the piece. So the next thing you're going to want to do, so this is the back of the box. So what you're going to do is do not put anything on the back of this yet, because this is where we're going to attach our lid. So you can create the piece with your cardstock and your pattern paper, but put it off to the side. Don't glue it down yet, okay? But then what you're going to do on the rest of it is do your cardstock mat and your pattern paper on the rest of these sides, okay? So just not the back of your box. Then on the inside, do your cardstock, okay, on all of the areas. And then let me give you a hint, because I did this as an afterthought, and it would have been a heck of a lot easier if I would have thought about it while I was making it. So for the bottom of the box, I did do the mat of the cardstock at 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. And then I was like, I put the box on, and then I was like, oh, now I got to cover this. So the easiest way to do this is do your cardstock at 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. Put that down on the bottom. Then put your pattern paper 5 1/2 by 5 1/2. Put that down. And then you can put your box on. That way, if you do it that way, you won't have to make all these little triangles and try to make them fit, okay? So it just makes it a lot easier. I did not put pattern paper on these in the inside because I didn't have enough from the box. I had, you know, enough to do all the rest of this, but I didn't have enough. So I left those plain, because I did want to use it on the folders and things. But that's just kind of my hint. I had a piece that would have fit under here, but I totally spaced out. I glued this box down, and then I went, uh-oh, you know. So do your cardstock mat, do your pattern paper, and then put this box down. It'll be a lot easier, okay? So that's my little hint for you. So let's get this out of the way. And so that's what you're going to do now. So you're going to do cardstock and pattern paper on everything but the back side where your lid's going to go. Then we're going to make our lid, and let's grab our scoreboard, and our lid is going to be 10 1/4 by 9 1/8, okay? 10 1/4, 9 1/8. We got the 10 1/4 at the top. We're going to score at 1, 2, 8 1/4, and 9 1/4. All right? 10 1/4 at the top, score at 1, 2, 8 1/4, 9 1/4. Turn it. So you got the 9 1/8 at the or at the top, excuse me. Score at 1, 2, and 8 1/8. Okay? Then we're going to do some cutting. So what we're going to do is on the bottom here, you're going to have, this is the 1-inch kind of lonely tab down here. You got the two 1-inch pieces up here, and on the sides, you've got the 1-inch piece down at the bottom. This is what's going to attach to our box. Now, our box is 6 inches, but you will notice that the actual lid is 6 1/4 wide, and that's to kind of give it a little bit of give, because it is an explosion box. So we do want it a little bit bigger. So it's 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 for the actual lid size. This tab will be a little bit bigger than our box. So there's a couple ways we can do it, and I think the easiest way here is to just actually, let's put it back in our scoreboard. That's going to be the easiest way. So put it back in with your inch at the top, and where the 2-inch score is right here, do another 1/8 inch just to that 1-inch score line. And then over here, you have a score line at 8 1/4. Do a little score at 8 1/8. And that's going to give you a 6-inch wide space in between our new scores. Those are going to be just cutting lines, so for guides. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to cut those out. So at the bottom, we're going to go up those 1/8 inch scores, go straight. And then you're going to cut those two 1-inch squares completely out. And you do have to cut the whole thing in order to get it out, right? So if you look at that, and I'm actually going to cut that score just a little bit more. I want to cut that score out going straight up. You're going to have a piece that looks like this. So you see there's a score, there's that 2-inch score here, but then we've got that extra 1/8 inch there. So we're going to do the same thing, cut that score out. And then cut straight all the way to that. And this is going to be the attachment to our box. And then that will be totally covered up, okay? Then at the top here, what we're going to do is make some tabs. So this might be kind of hard to see, but what we're going to do is we're going to cut this square out, and this square out. I used really dark paper. Sorry about that. This is going to be a tab right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn it around. We're going to cut those outer 3 squares out. So basically, here's the easiest way to do this. Cut up this score, okay, and then cut up this score. Okay, so you just done this, okay. Cut that, and then cut that bottom 1/2 inch or 1 inch off. Okay, so you'll end up with a piece like this, okay? Then what we're going to do is just turn that into a tab. So we're just going to miter that. Okay? Just like so. All right, we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to cut straight up. Cut straight up. Turn it. Cut that piece out. Cut that piece, and then turn that into a tab. All right, so now you should have a piece that looks like that, okay? So you have your bottom piece that has that extra little 1/8 inch cutout, and then you have your corners cut out. Let's fold and burnish. So we're gonna turn this over and grab our scoreboard. Okay, and then fold this piece over. Like so. This will give us a nice finished inside lip to our lid, which is kind of nice, and strengthen it as well. Since I'm not using chipboard, I'm trying to go for a little bit more strength, but it also makes a real pretty finish too. Okay, so we have all of our pieces done. So now this is where you're going to want to cover with pattern paper. You are not going to do pattern paper on here. So this is a big fat no, because we're going to add it to our box, and then you'll cover that up with the piece that we've already prepared, right? So I'm just going to put this here as a reminder, okay? No pattern paper here. On the outside, put pattern paper here, 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 on the sides and on these, okay? So you're going to do your strips. These are 1 inch by 6 1/4. Or excuse me, these sides are 1 inch by 6 1/8. So you will cut them at 3/4 by 5 7/8 for your mats, and then cut off another, it's a 1/2 inch by 5 5/8 for your pattern papers, okay? The lid here will measure 6 1/4 by 6 1/8, and you're going to cut 6 by 5 7/8, and then 5 3/4 by 5 5/8, okay? Now this piece here is still 1 inch wide, but it's a little bit wider, so it's 6 1/4, so you have to do that accordingly, okay? So 6 by 3/4, and then 5 3/4 by 1/2. Now, on my box, and I'll show you what I did, I utilized the washi tape, which actually was the perfect size for those pieces, and then I did glue them down so that, because washi doesn't stick, it's very, very removable. So I did glue the washi tape on there, but that's what I used for the sides of mine, so you can see how the mats look. Okay, so each piece was cut 1/4 inch smaller than the piece it's covering. Okay, makes sense? So you're going to want to do that on all of the sides. Now, on the inside pieces, I chose not to use the washi tape. You can do whatever you want, but this is where you're going to cover that outside piece, because we're going to fold those down. And this is going to make sense in just a second, I hope. I'm going to knock everything over. I've got a mess over here, okay? So do the coverings here, and then on the inside, do the covering for the inside here. You don't have to do these because these are going to be glued together, okay? And you don't have to do this because this is the tab that's going to attach to the back, okay? So pattern paper here on the inside square piece here, and then pattern paper, all that stuff on the outside, okay? Then we're just going to build this lid. So what you're going to do is take these tabs and you're going to add some glue, and we're going to fold it up and glue that down. Line up your edges, okay? And burnish that down, make sure it sticks. Okay, so you should have it glued on the inside, and you still have these 1-inch tabs kind of hanging out. We're going to do the same thing over here. Match those edges. And it's a lot easier to put your pattern paper on now, you know, before you do this. Just my thought here. When I constructed it, I did not put the pattern paper on yet because I was kind of working on the box, and yeah, so I'm telling you, what's easier is not how I originally did it. Okay, so then all of these extra inch tabs are just going to literally be glued down, and they're going to cover the inside. And then so you can see, if you put your pattern paper and everything on the outside, then it's done. I mean, like, your lid is decorated as far as cardstock and pattern paper goes. So I'm just going to fold those over, okay? And that, again, is going to, it will be all decorated, and it's all going to be reinforced really nicely, okay? So this one here will cover those tabs, okay? And sorry, it's a little bit, it's a little fiddly. And just press that down. Use your bone folder. Make sure that's got a good stick all the way in the corners. All right, last one. Like so. All right, so there's your lid. Okay, so at this point, because we folded everything over, you can see that if you put your pattern paper on, this is basically done. The only thing that will not be covered is this back tab here. So that's where we're gonna go grab our paper for construction here, okay? And we're gonna grab this back that we did not cover, okay? And we're going to glue this to that. Now, if you want to miter this, you can, and it will help hide the edges a little bit better if you do. So I'm just gonna miter that just a wee bit, just to that 1/8 inch mark, okay? And then I'm gonna turn it upside down just because that's gonna help me, because the lid's made, right? I'm gonna take that off so I don't accidentally glue that down. And this is gonna glue to the outside of your box. Like so. And then you should be able to line up that tab right in the center where we did that extra cut. And you should have about 1/8 of an inch on either side, and it should match up perfectly, okay? All right, then you can flip this over. It's gonna be a little bit difficult because the lid is made, but it's doable because you can do it just like that, okay? So then that's when you put your pattern paper on the back, the assembly that you've already made. So just don't put it on till you're done, because then that'll cover up the tab, okay? Now, if you make a mistake and you cover this accidentally and then you put the tab on, not a big deal. You can just put another border strip up here. You can cover it up. You can do it. You can, it will be fine. But I'm just saying, if you don't want to, you know, if you want to just do it, then you're good to go. So our box is made. We're imagining our pattern paper and our cardstock mat are down at the bottom. The next thing we're going to need to do is we're just going to make some tick marks in the middle. So this box bottom on the inside is 3 inches. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to draw a line that I can see, and you will be drawing this on your pattern paper. It's okay. This is how we're going to line up the inner box that we're going to make. Okay, so we're just going to make a line here and a line here, and then we're going to put that off to the side, and we're going to grab our inner diagonal box. This is another 12 by 12 piece of paper, and what we're going to do with this is put it in our scoreboard, 12 by 12, and we're going to score at 2, 4, 8, 10, turn, repeat. 2, 4, 8, and 10. And basically what we are going to do is kind of the same thing we did for the lid. We're going to make some tabs. We're going to cut those 3 corners out. I'm going to do this one a little bit different. Whoops, excuse me. Because I'm going to use these tabs to help reinforce all 4 sides. So we're going to do it kind of pinwheel fashion. So instead of having our tabs all kind of aiming the same direction, we're going to aim them in all 4 different directions. Let me show you what I mean. We're still going to cut out all 4 of these corners and create a tab just like we did for the lid. So I'm going to cut up those 2-inch squares both ways, okay? And then I'm going to cut that 2-piece section out like so. I'm going to cut that bottom off. Then I'm going to create my tab. All right, and so I have one of my tabs done. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it, and I'm going to repeat it exactly the same as I did it. I'm going to cut up those 2 squares. So you can see then the tabs will be going 1 in each of the 4 directions, okay? That's how we're going to do this. So I'm going to cut that up, cut that 2-piece out, and I'm cutting straight up because this is going to be the side of our box. So make sure you're nice and straight. I think I missed that score just a little bit. All right, cut that 1 piece off. Okay, so you have your little thing, make your tab. Like so, okay? I am going, so you can see this one's going this way, this one's going this way. Then we're going to do it again. We're going to turn, and we're going to do it again. So I'm going to do the next 2, and I will be right back, and then I'll show you how to put this together. Okay, so I finished my tabs, and you can see how they're all going in different directions. And that's going to be nice because when we attach the tabs, each tab will attach to a different side. And then that'll help kind of reinforce the sides of this inner box. So you have your two pieces here. They're going to fold over the tabs again. So this is going to be the outside of the box. Now, do not do this section here. And I should have saved my little X postie. Oh, I did. Okay, so do not do this bottom section on the outside because that's going to glue down to the inside of the box. You don't need to put pattern paper or anything on there. So you're just going to want to put your mats and your pattern paper on the sides there. And then on the inside, you'll want to put it right here. Do not put them on the insides because, again, these are going to fold over and cover your tabs, okay, to create your box. So then, again, you're just going to go around and you're going to put your tabs down. Gonna glue, matching your sides, okay. Pattern paper and your mats are already on, and you don't have to use, I guess you don't have to use mats if you don't want to. I would suggest you do, you know, use an extra cardstock mat just because it gives it a little bit more strength, you know, but I mean, I guess if you don't want to, you don't have to. If you're using like 100-pound cardstock or something, you probably don't need to. This right here is basil. It's like 80-pound, I think. So it's pretty sturdy, but I definitely think I would use extra cardstock, especially if I wanted a project that was going to last for a while. And if you're using this as a, you know, a useful item like a sewing box where you're going to probably get into it quite a bit, yeah, I would definitely do that. All right. Okay, so this is where it's going to get a little tricky. We got to kind of get in there and glue that tab down. So I'm just going to kind of do it here. Try and get that glued. Okay, and then, yeah, that didn't glue very well, but we're going to put that piece over top of it, so it's going to be okay. So I'm going to bend these back just so you can see what I'm doing. So now you've got a box that looks like this. Okay, so all the tabs are glued down. Reinforce those a little bit. Decorating this after the fact is going to be fun. But I really wanted to show you the construction here. Okay, so, and I didn't have time to prepare and try and figure out what other papers I was going to use, so that's okay. I can do it later, right? I can do it later. It can be done. I mean, it seriously can be done. It's a little more tricky because this is bigger and all that, but, you know. Okay, so just do that all the way around. The art glitter glue also, when it dries, it does help stiffen things up as well. So that's also a nice benefit of using that. Okay. Almost there, guys. We are almost there. Construction of the box, almost done. We'll do the pockets, we'll do the folders, and there you go. Fun project to create. I had a good time, and it was fun to try to see how far I could stretch, you know, the papers that I had, because I didn't have a lot, and there was like, you know, no way I could just run to the store and grab some more because it, you know, is a subscription box. So, but you got to go check it out because they got some great stuff. That's for sure. Okay, box is done. So then grab your outer box here. And again, we're imagining cardstock and pattern paper on here. We've drawn our 3-inch lines here. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to line up the 2 points with those pencil marks and glue this down, okay? So I'm going to have to get up kind of tall here to do that. And take that off. Put glue on the bottom of your box. And again, cardstock and pattern paper on the bottom first. Make your life a lot easier. And then I am just going to try and eyeball this to get it centered. That looks pretty good. And I'm going to grab a little scraper here, kind of just press that down, make sure that it's got a good stick. And then you can see why it's important, because now this will be covered with pattern paper and your box will be sitting there and it'll be just beautiful. Okay, so that's that. And then just grab your little eraser. You can erase those little pencil marks there. And you're good to go. Okay, then the box will fold up like this and your lid comes in like that, and voila, your box is done. Okay, so let's go ahead and check out the Gusseted Pockets. These are super easy. You will be making 2 of those that are 8 1/4 by 4 3/4. These are both scored the same. You're going to put the 8 1/4 at the top. And this is just a basic gusseted pocket. So you score it half, 1, and 1/2. And then I'm going to go over here and you're going to do 3 more of the 1/2 inch scores. We're going to start at 6 3/4, 7 1/4, 7 3/4. Turn it on the 4 3/4 and score at 4 1/4. Okay, so that's just another 1/2 inch score. So if you turn it and you want to score it at the 1/2 inch, that's fine too. So you should have 3 1/2 inch scores on each side and 1 1/2 inch score on the bottom. And we're going to grab our scissors. And what we're going to do on the sides here with the 3 scores, you're just going to miter that first one. Okay, leave the other 2 straight. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to miter up this bottom 1/2 inch on the long one and then just cut the other ones out. And I'm going to leave them fairly straight because that's going to help me kind of line up my pockets. Okay, but I am going to cut the score out, so kind of make sure you do that. It'll give us a little bit of wiggle room, but go straight and cut that up. Okay, so you should have that. So again, you miter up and then cut that score out. Okay, let's do the other one. And then here, miter. Cut. Miter. And cut. And we're going to fold and burnish, okay? And as you do this, you might have to nudge it just a little bit just to make sure your scores match, okay? And fold this bottom one up, like so. And then you fold in, out, in. That one lined up pretty good. Okay, repeat. Well, actually, let's let this glue. Let's put some glue on. So put the glue, fold your side scores in. Okay, this is where these clips come in handy too. We're going to fold that up. And then we're going to use our clips to kind of hold it while it dries a little bit, and we can work on the other pocket. Okay, so we'll fold and burnish. Okay. All right. A little bit of glue. A couple clips. And I love these clips too. If you haven't seen my videos, I've got these clips at the dollar store and they work great. And you get like 6 for $1.25 now, because it's not the dollar store, it's a $1.25 store, right? Okay, these pockets go, and these ones I can't stick down because if I'm going to finish this, then I won't be able to put the pattern paper on. But these pockets, let me get this out of the way, will go on the sides, and I put them, so you're going to have your cardstock and your pattern paper, so I did another 1/8 of an inch up and put them down on either side, okay? And I did them so that they open, when you open the box, they open at the top, so the stuff stays inside. Let me show you the final result here, okay? So this one here, I didn't put pattern paper on, you know, but you can kind of see the placement of it, okay, and how it's done. And you just literally just glue it down, okay? So you will put glue on all 3 of these. And then the other thing too is I would suggest to do the tape trick. So I'll do that real quick just to show you. So you can do that by taking a piece of Scotch tape or something, Scotch tape, sellotape, whatever you want to call it, push it in all the way to the bottom, and then push your tab down. What that will do is once you glue this down, that will help cover that seam, and when you put stuff in and out, it won't catch on that tab, okay? So you can do that before you glue this down. And then when you press it down, when you're adhering it, that'll push that tape down. And then you can also go in with your bone folder and really press it down, and that will help secure those pockets, okay? So that is an idea. I'm going to take that off for now just because I need to finish this, okay? But those will go here, okay? So there's that. I'm going to go ahead and I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll paper clip them just so that we can kind of get a visual of where they're going to be. Maybe, if I can get my paper clip around. All right. Like so, okay? So that's where those are going to go. Now we're going to do the folders for the back and the front. Folders, again, are super easy. You do need some seam binding or ribbon. I'm using this beige seam binding from Country Craft Creations. So these, let's put that to the side. The folios, you will need 2 pieces that are 10 1/4 by 10 1/4. And then you will need 2 pieces from the front, for the front. And that is asterisked because it'll depend on what paper you're using, what cut aparts you want to use, all that stuff. So I just grabbed a couple scraps, and for an example, these are cut at 3 3/4 by 4 3/4. They're literally just scraps. So these right here can be any size you need them to be, okay? So here are the folios. These are so simple, so simple. Okay, 10 1/4, 10 1/4, score at 2 1/2, 7 3/4, 2 1/2, 7 3/4. Then you're just going to literally cut the corners out, and I'm cutting the scores out with them. Okay, so you're just cutting those out like so. I will finish doing that, and then I will come back and show you how to put these together. I finished one of the folios already because we're going to do them exactly the same way. Cut out all 4 corners, and then I used my corner rounder, and I went ahead and rounded the corners, and then I took my little square piece and I rounded those corners as well. And this is what it's going to look like when it's done. So the flaps will fold in like a folio. You're going to have pattern paper on your little side doors here, and then you're going to glue this piece on one side or the other. It doesn't really matter. I think I did mine opposite just because I like that. It's aesthetic. But then you'll just glue it on one side of the door so that when you open up your seam binding, okay, then you'll have like this door, and then you'll have your little folio that opens up like that, okay? And this will help keep lots of little things inside, and you know, it is a little bit loose, so you know, you can pile some stuff in there and still keep it nice and secure with the flaps and with the seam binding closures. So it'll work out really good. So let me show you about that. So this will fold down, top, bottom, side to side, okay? And then just when you do that, just reinforce your scores here. Make sure everything fits nice. This is one reason why we cut out our scores, so everything fits really nice. So that's how you should have it. If you wanted to do it up and down, you can do that too. It's whatever you prefer to do. So turn it over on the back side, and this is what's going to get glued down. You're going to put this in your centering ruler here, and I'm going to center it. Now this will center at 2 5/8 on each side, okay? Because the total length is 5 1/4, so it's 5 1/4 by 5 1/4. All right, so centering it will be 2 5/8. All right, and you just put a little bit of seam by, whoop, maybe. I guess I probably should burnish that down, huh? Yeah, let's do that. Thought I did, but I didn't. Take that backing off. Good gravy. That seam binding didn't work at all. Let me try another piece. Let's try another piece. All right. Or it's seam binding. Score tape. It's score tape, guys. Score tape. All right, score tape. There we go. Okay. So peel that off, and then grab your 2 pieces of seam binding, and I cut these at about 16 inches or so because I wanted to make sure that I had enough to wrap around, glue to the back, and to tie knots in the ends. Okay, so I'm just going to tie my knot here. Now you can wait to tie your knots till after you tie your bow, because it depends on how long and fluffy you like your bows too. You know, so, you know, there's that. So you don't have to tie it right off the bat like I'm doing, because I usually don't do that. Sometimes I check and see how fluffy my bow is first, and I sometimes trim off some of my seam binding, but I do like to make sure I have enough, because there's nothing worse than having too little seam binding, that's for sure. So here's one folder, here's another folder, so I'm just going to center that in between. Now again, this can be any size you want. It just happened to be what scraps I had. You can make it wider so it covers the whole thing. You could do it this way. It doesn't really matter. It is totally up to your preference. So then you just glue that down to whichever side you want, and then you tie your seam binding here, and then you grab your book, and I'm going to grab one paper clip just to make sure this piece doesn't go missing. Okay? Or then you grab your book, your box. Let's get some stuff out of the way. You grab your box. So one will be glued here. Okay? And then one will be glued here. Easy peasy. All right. So those are those pieces. That is the box. Now let's go to the last folder that goes into the inner box, and then we will be done. And you know, as I was doing this guy and realizing that I'm telling you don't glue anything down, I'm not going to glue anything down because I need to decorate it, I totally glued this box down. So I am still going to have to figure out triangles, but that's okay. You're not going to do that because I told you 100 times to, ad nauseum, to, you know, put the cardstock mat and the pattern paper down first, right? Right. Okay. So don't, you know, do as I say, not as I do, right? Just like your mom used to tell you. Folder time. This is the little folder that's optional for the inner box, and I did it because I had little ephemera pieces that I wanted to add into this project. You need a piece that's 9 by 7.5. On the 9, you're going to score at 1/2, 4.5, 8.5, and turn it, score at 5.5. Okay, that's going to give you a 2-inch pocket here. And if I grab that folder so I could show you, where did it go? There it is. So I did it real simply. I just covered with pattern paper the bits that I had left over. on the cardstock here. I folded up. I did create notches for the pockets. I'm going to show you how to do that. I rounded these corners, and then I just tied a loop of twine and put a charm on there, that little sewing machine charm that came in the package. So I wanted to use that, but it basically is really cute for putting little bits of ephemera. You could put little note cards and like have a pen handy, that kind of thing. Super easy and simple. So the pockets here, we're just going to tab the sides here. And then if you want to reinforce the edges of this, and if you plan on putting pattern paper on the inside, you could leave these tabs, you know, make miters and then fold them over and then put pattern paper on the inside. I did not do that because I didn't have enough pattern paper for the inside. So I just cut those completely off. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I've mitered that tab, and I'm just going to cut up that score line on the side. So I'm trying to cut the score line kind of out, okay, and creating a piece that looks like that, okay. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Just going to start at the top here, and I'm going to cut that score line out. But again, if you wanted to use those tabs to help reinforce, you totally could, okay. And then I also did not, you know, of course, cover this with pattern paper either. So you can do however you want. You could use bits of ephemera if you have an ephemera piece that you want to use from a collection you're using to make this project. You know, you could decorate the pockets with that, however you want to do it. Okay. So we're just folding and burnishing our score lines. And before we glue anything down, we're going to make that slit in the side. So easiest way to do this, and I'm going to just make sure, yeah, I did it at 1/2 inch. So take your piece, you're going to want to slit that bottom pocket, okay, so that when you fold your piece, you don't have that buckle or, you know, get in the way, okay. So we're going to cut just this score line out only. So we're going to fold that and grab your ruler and your pencil, and we're just going to make a 1/2 inch tick mark right at that center, okay. And then you can just grab your trimmer and you can line up that tick mark to that score line, and then just whack that off, and then you have your little wedge. And then you might need to go in, depending on how accurate you get with your trimmer, you might need to go in and just kind of make sure that point is nice, okay. So you should have something that looks like this now. And then you're just going to, we can corner around while we're at it, pop that in there like that, and then we're going to just fold those tabs and glue them up, and that's all you got to do. That's the little folder, and then you can decorate this bad boy any way you want, and you have a little place to put notes or needle books or whatever. Have a little pen so you can take notes, mark, you know, lines off your patterns, whatever suits your fancy. So there's that folder, and that will just go in the pocket, okay. So I think that concludes my tutorial on this beautiful sewing box that I made with the products that I got in my Your Creative Studio box, and it just turned out fabulous. I'm really super happy with it. And again, once you get all the pieces in there, and it just folds up nice and neat, and then you can decorate the top however you want, and it just is a beautiful project. And then also, I love the fact that because it's kind of versatile, if you know where you put your stuff, you can open your lid if you have limited space, and you can just open up like one side and you can get in it and get your stuff, or you can just open two sides and you can still have it kind of, you know, not take up a whole lot of space. So it's really kind of a cool project. I like it. So that's it. There's a link down below to Your Creative Studio. There's a link below to the walkthrough that I did with this and kind of explained a lot of stuff. And yeah, that's my tutorial. So thanks for watching. Have a great day, and I'll be back soon with more things. So stay crafty, and I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.